Hello from Pastor Ken Harley in Hong Kong. This is my diabetic story, diabetes, okay? Now today I'm going to talk about my right leg amputation. Now there's so many other things I can talk about, but today I'm releasing 3 videos. One that's diabetic introduction to my life. The next one is my right leg amputation. And the third one is how to put on my artificial leg, get up and walk, okay? So this one, what happened was, it was right after Christmas, 2020, before the COVID got started. My wife's parents were here. We were doing remodeling in my apartment. We were having a great time. The year before, I had vision problems with my right eye. I couldn't even hardly see my wife across the dinner table. And we were afraid that I was going blind. And it was very hard for her, but a few months later of rest of my eye, the vision cleared, I could go back to work, everything was fine. So everything's going great. That Christmas, no problems with my eyes, no problems with my body, everything was fine. And then in January, the 3rd week after we said goodbye to Irene's parents, I went to get my foot with the regular treatment because I still had a wound on my left foot, and they looked at my right foot and they said, your toe fell off. It was still on, but there was a bone infection, and I'm not sure if they accidentally cut the toe off or if it just had already broken. So they said, you need to go to the emergency room. And I told Irene, I'm not going to go to the emergency room because it's COVID and things were up in the air, and they were telling people with diabetes, if you get COVID, it could get really bad, you might even die. So my friends and I said, stay at home and let's see what happens with this toe. And what happens is I kept working, kept getting my pay, because I've learned when you have diabetes, you don't give up, you keep working and you try to do the best you can. But what happened is I started getting gangrene on that toe, and then it spread and it spread, and after 9 months, I was in so much pain as my foot was really starting to fall apart and fall off. It was horrible. So I stopped work on September 28th of 2020, and then I went to the hospital on October 15th, and then October 17th, they cut off my leg. And when they cut off my leg, I am the type of person from California. I was raised that you trust in God, that He has good purpose for you. And so I wanted to say, hey, give me a Coke Light and a hot dog. And I had this big block. And then they had this big like tube in my leg. And it was draining the blood from the surgery. I didn't know there was this big pail of blood underneath my hospital bed. It was really gross. And they were draining the blood. I was blessed and lucky because I had a nurse, a young man, that he went to my school. He knew who I was, and he told everybody that I wasn't just some drunk Westerner or British guy, but that I had given millions to Hong Kong in charity donations and worked for the school and really cared for Chinese people. So they were really good. They watched out for me. And the block was horrible because I'd go to the bathroom, they'd put me on a bathroom chair, wheel me into the toilet, then I'd do my business, call for them, and at the beginning I couldn't even wipe myself. It was very shameful. Then they put me back on the bed, and it was so painful. Finally they took the block off, and they gave me another kind of thing that I had to wear on my leg at night, and it was very painful. Finally, the most painful thing you can imagine, they pulled out that blood tube, and it was like pulling a knife out of my leg, and it probably was like a knife. And finally, they got rid of that, and little by little, I was able to walk and see my leg heal. It took about 3 weeks. I was slow, and they were checking to make sure I didn't have an infection. I would go to the physical therapy place with the wheelchair, and I'd have to walk little by little, and it was really hard. But I did it, and then I go to the other occupational therapy. I do a lot of this to get me strong. They were trying to get me strong in my muscles, weight lift, so that I could start to carry myself with my arms while I hopped around. And then after about 3 weeks, I went to another hospital for rehabilitation, and for 2 weeks I sat there to make sure that I didn't have a disease and they would reject me from rehab. I didn't have the disease, then I started going to rehab, and over a 60-day period during the hospitalization, then I finally got my leg, and I could either sit there with no help or no rehab, or I could go home and do outside rehab. So they took all the people that were ready, and we went outside the hospital with our legs. You can see my leg here. And then I learned how to use it. And it took quite some time, so at least until May, before I was really starting to getting good walking around. But the thing is that's different about me than most people is I actually wanted to walk. I would do whatever I could to walk. Okay, so it was really crazy. The doctors would come in and they say, do you want to walk or do you want to go home? And I said, I want to go home, but I want to walk. Is there any way you can get me my leg and I can try to walk so I can go home before Christmas? Because I don't want to sit in the hospital. I remember I'd been in the hospital for over 60 days. I hadn't seen my wife, and I had been taking week-on passes for a few weeks, but COVID got bad again. They wouldn't let me go out. So I could be 1-2 weeks in the hospital sitting around without getting to be with my friends or my wife for Christmas. So what happened was they got me my leg, okay? Now, what happened? My leg was off and now it's on. How did that happen? See if you can figure it out. So they got me my leg and I started walking, and then I started going to the physical therapist and walking for 2 days, and finally they let me out. But they wouldn't let me walk out. I had to walk on December 24th, 2020. They let me out at 4:30. So I went to the church after that. We had a praise party with Christmas with Irene, myself, and maybe a couple of others. And then we went home, and I hardly got to experience Christmas. It was over before I knew it because I was in the hospital the whole of December, the Christmas season. And the last 10 or 15 days before December 24th, I couldn't go on the weekend pass to see my wife. So it was really, really hard for me. And I was so glad to be home. And but I wasn't able to walk very much. And even when I'd go on a weekend pass, I'd have these traumatic experiences where I'm hopping with my walker to try to go to the bathroom, and my wife would say something, and I'd put my hand on the piano, and then I'd fall on my leg and hurt myself, and we were all freaking out and everything. But the rule is, when you're just first going through this, you will fall a few times until you get more, more experience. Now, I don't have that problem. Now, when I went for physical therapy, it was close to my house. The lady was really good to me, and we started slowly to learn how to walk. But I kept on getting these blisters on my leg. So sometimes I would just go in a wheelchair and then stretch and then leave in the wheelchair, unable to walk. And it took months. Finally, by the time my birthday came around, July 29th of 2020, I was walking pretty good, but I would... Okay. Let's get the date right. On July 29th, 2021, I was still going for my physical therapy and occupational therapy, but I started going less because I started having eye problems again where I couldn't see very good, and that was the beginning that I would have to retire and not be able to work. And I retired in August, unable to work because of my vision problems. But I'm still able to walk, get around, everything's fine. And this is pretty much at an end. I'm not having problems with blisters on my legs, not having problems with my left foot. It's just eye problems I'm dealing with now. That's the issue with diabetes. We'll talk about that in another video. God bless. Remember, until you're dead, you keep living alive, doing good things for those around you, and being happy and smiling. Because even with diabetes, you can make a big difference in the world. See you later.